Alright, welcome back to another EDH deck video. Today I'm going to be continuing with my theme of new player themed decks. Previously I had posted a dual deck where I did a Chroma versus Chroma. Today I'm showing a $30 budget deck design I put together specifically for someone. They are trading me food monies and whatnot for an actual deck. So these are straight out of box, a package I just got from ABU. And what I had done is I literally just found the colors that, well, this person actually specifically wanted this general, Surrak Dragonclaw. So we're playing Timur. And they said they wanted to spend as much as everyone was on the dual decks, which was $30 or $29.99 MSRP, depending on wherever you're getting them at. So with that budget in place, I went and designed a deck. This is essentially just a good stuff enter the battlefield deck, because when you have a restricted budget, there's not a lot of expensive and special combo parts you can put together. You can make budget combo decks, but if you're on a financial budget, like a specific dollar amount, you're not going to get many play sets and duplicates of your combo elements, which makes the deck too delicate. So we have a big old beater deck with lots of creatures. So let's go through the deck. Again, there are 64 cards here, actually. I didn't bother picking basic lands. They already have them. So there's 4 non-basics and then 62 cards, including Surrak. Most of these are of the price range between 15 cents to 50 cents each. There are 9 cards in this entire stack that are actually over $1, including Surrak. Let's go through what the deck does. Again, this is a highly mobile deck, like a modular, I would say modular almost, because again, it's just lots of stuff generically inserted. You can see and improve the deck as you actually build a better collection and see more cards and learn more of the game. But utilizing someone like me who's had just too much experience with the game, I can pull out lots of older cards that don't have a high price tag but are still good. Or playable, especially in a format where you are playing on a budget. So Surrak here is 5 mana, 2 green, blue, red for a 6/6 flash who cannot be countered, and creature spells can't be countered, and he gives everything else trample. So on his own, he's really good for just about anything in the colors. You would typically in these colors, the best general is Maelstrom Wonder, but being that that card itself is almost as expensive as this whole stack of cards, we're going to run with Surrak, and that is what she chose as the general. He is also good in Voltron, since he can't be countered, and Flash gives him pseudo haste at the end of someone's turn, that is. But in this deck, again, we're running big creature beaters because that's the easiest thing to compile when you have a $30 budget. So, on to what I typically play in green is just enter the battlefield good stuff and generic ramp. So we have lots of creatures that enter the battlefield and get lands straight into play. Each one of these does the same thing. Some of them get you forced only, some of them have other effects like Echo, but they all just get you lands. And note some of these have creature power 4 or greater. There's a lot of tech in the deck that just keeps letting you draw. If you can't play expensive and powerful cards, one thing you can try to do is just try to get advantage and massive drawing. Because if you don't have 1 or 2 powerful cards in your hand, but you can just draw a lot of cards, then that's still at least something. These 2 guys are designed to die, so you can at least ramp and maybe get some advantage. And then we just have a whole stack of cards that enter the battlefield and do stuff. Just pretty generic cards. A lot of these are really commonplace. Some of these don't have a whole bunch of targets, but they will still get you something. And then, of course, some of these are just a little underwhelming, but also classically good, and they've been reprinted enough that their price is easy to snag. This is a prime example of things that should be upgraded. In today's standards, you would typically think this is like a phantasmal image or a clever impersonator. Even since we're playing red, this could be a Dax duplicate. But with the financial cost of what we're going for, we're just going for a plain old clone. Good removal and tutor. All these do things when they enter the battlefield. That's the primary focus of this deck, is just good advantage and good drawing, because without a whole bunch of Gucci powerful cards, there's not even any pimpage in here. Like, no, this is just the generic one, not even the full art one like I had. There's no pimpage, there's just good stuff into the battlefield. Try to win by advantage and tempo. Lots of ramp in here too coming up. Ironically enough, a lot of the promo cards, like when you go to websites, these will be sent compared to even like the non-foil version of this. Like the Zender card non-foil version of this costs more than this promo Walmart version did, or Buy a Box, or whatever this came from. This doesn't really fit the theme, but this is a card that, like the type of how this deck kind of needs to go sometimes. This is something important. This is another card that should be hopefully replaced soon. It is a mana doubler effect. We're in green, but we don't have enough money for things like mana reflections. But something like this, while it does help the opponents, this deck will hopefully take advantage more. I do love these new lieutenants, and being that we're in a 3-color deck, we have access to all 3 lieutenants. And that was actually, we're done with the creatures that enter and do stuff. Now we're just looking at classic or good, cost-efficient financially beaters. Morden Dragon, obviously you would think Balefire Dragon, but something like Morden Dragon is just nice and cheap. He was, I think, 15 cents on the dot. Horde Smelter is fantastic for artifact removal. We have some good old beaters here. Again, a promo card, much cheaper than even the non-foil version of the rare. And a new card, just something that, kind of a rattlesnake effect. If you're still kind of new to the game, something like this is helping you learn that you want to be more manipulative in combat. Something like this should be left back sometimes. And I love Flame Blast Dragon. It is a powerful, powerful card, and luckily it has been reprinted to death, so this is just a dirt cheap card. Again, a foil promo, much cheaper than the non-foil rare. Going back a ways here, a classic unblockable card. There's a few things in the deck that let you draw when things connect, so this is just a good card. Same thing, some things that you just don't want to target, and they've reprinted this in the Graveborn set and the original Shard set, so this is the 3rd time it's reprinted. Inkwell's dropped quite a bit now. Blood Rush is kind of nifty. Again, this is something you might want to hold up for combat. I do have a list of cards I'll talk about shortly that could be direct upgrades or ways of modifying this from creature to Voltron to just about any other combo element. But this is just a hint of Voltron, something you could give Surrak +4 and Trample. Again, sadly, he does not give himself Trample, which is a big bummer in my opinion. Another big old bump spell. This is a ramp deck, so there's a good chance this will give a +10 power boost in the combat. And once again, a promo card that is cheaper than the non-foil version of the rare. This is good card advantage. We don't have something like the Oracle Modiah, which is a very powerful card, but also a very expensive card. This one is just cents and pennies, and it gives you card advantage. Granted, again, we're in blue, so we could be playing things like the a Future Sight, but the cost, the dollar value on that is not something we could fit. And luckily, these two guys, with the reprinting of Primordial Sage now, these are both very cost and cheap cards to purchase, and these are very good cards in any kind of creature-heavy deck. Now we're on to the actual expensive cards. So Surrak himself costs $1. Prophet. This is just such a powerful card, and I know a lot of people hate seeing this card, but you are on a budget, and you want to obviously make the deck the best you could. So I had a few slots for actual valuable cards. Most of this was the first shoe-ins, and I started building and going backwards after I reached like 100 cards. Prophet had to stay. It's such a powerful effect, and it's really good again for newer players. Something like this, having a powerful card, something that must be answered, win more sometimes. She really fits. And of course, if you're playing Prophet, you want Prime Speaker, or just about any big creature deck, you want Prime Speaker because it's a very big card refill. The person I made this for has essentially a passion for green and blue, so if she ever decides to nix the red, then she has a backup general already. And of course, the most annoying card in the deck that will probably make this the most abusive deck in our meta, with the people that this will be played with, is Deadeye. There's a slight learning curve with Deadeye. While it does cost 6, typically I will try to impress the idea that Deadeye actually costs 8 mana, because that is important to keep this guy safe. But that's actually it. That's all the creatures. We're on to the spells. As I said, there's lots of ramp spells in here. Again, just cards that you will try to get an advantage on. Since we don't have super powerful draw tech, we can't go infinite in a couple ways. The best we can do is filter the deck and get as many 2-for-1 effects as possible. So we got Cultivate and Kodama's Reach, Explosive Veg, and Peregrination. And while this is designed for multiplayer, these will most likely be the first to go, since I don't know how much this person enjoys land destruction, but these are my 3 preferences for target, land destruction, and ramp. And again, in multiplayer, this is not the best 3 cards to use. Boundless Realms is, of course, over $1, so this, the actual effect that this gets you is so good, I had to have her have this. And it's always good to have an emergency, like some kind of kill switch, one single board wipe. The deck is designed to flood the board with creatures and hopefully be the most aggressive thing on the board, but it's always good to have a backup plan. Some people prefer more than one. It's just, financially, this is one of the most cost-efficient to purchase board wipes in these 3 colors. Couldn't even afford a Cyclonic Rift in this build, which should be in the deck. Praetor's Council is another $1 card. It's something really good for late game recursion. And Genesis Wave is the big card of the deck. I let them play my a sapling deck once, and they fell in love with the card because the card does stupid things. So I had to get another one for here. Rite of Application is again another Win War card. And we're off to the permanents. Since we are in 3 colors, we want to really take as much advantage of drawing as much as we can to fix as much as we can. And there are over, 24 creatures in this deck that have over 4 power, assuming like Clone Enters and Prime Speaker Enters with 4. So something like this is just going to be good card advantage, and giving everything haste. So Uncountable and haste with just these guys together is really good. This is kind of a filler. I was running out of currency to keep using for filler cards, and some things just didn't fit right. This felt like it would be a nice late game bomb, something to use after other resources have been exhausted. I'm not a fan of Dragon Roost. I know it's really good if you have lots of mana, but even me as a mostly mono red player, I just typically don't run it myself. But for this deck and for learning, this will be an obvious thing to replace later down the road. We have Coastal Piracy and Biden of Thassa. Both of these, again, there are 44 creatures total in the deck. There's lots of ways of getting creatures trample, unblockable, things like that, fun things. So these will hopefully at least replace themselves once, if not quite a few times. And since I'm running the Biden, I do have the Hammer Perforos. Again, this is super cheap financially. I was not able to include the Bow of Nylea in this list because for some reason that one has a higher dollar price tag than everything else. Sol Ring is the last expensive card of the deck. It's not EDH without Sol Ring. And I've only included 4 lands. Again, I ran out of financial room. So everything else in this deck is going to be basic lands. So we have Frontier, the 3-color tap land, and 3 of the dual lands that each enter and gain you 1 life. So we couldn't actually fit a command tower in here either. But again, that's something that should hopefully directly replace this. The idea will be to add 34 lands to the deck, so we'll be up to 38 total. What I have suggested would be 18 forests, 12 islands, and 8 mountains. But of course, I made a whole bunch of ideas, like just a piece of paper with some generic ideas for upgrades. The most important upgrade I'm going to suggest this person investigate would be a Kessig Wolf Run, because that's just really good. Some other cards that are actually pretty good and not expensive would be like a Reliquary Tower, Lifeblood Hydra, and something like a Birthing Pod. But of course, there's just better cards you can get. Depending on how she actually plays the deck, there's a lot of routes you can take. You can go a more controlling route and include Venser or Mystic Snake and Tutors to go with the Deadeye. You can do all sorts of stuff with just like Voltron, adding equipment and whatnot, or a couple combos. Since half the combos are already in the deck, like Rite of Replication, if you get Scourge of Valkus in there, you already have usually a 1. If that spell resolves and the dragons kill everyone, it's like 180 damage split. But also you got Deadeye, so you can do things like Palancron, Blue Sun Zenith. And yeah, so there's just lots of options. But this entire stack is right at $30 on the dot. And this is just a good starter. The group this is going to be played with, 2 of them are already running strict precons, the mono blue and the mono white. So hopefully this fares. I have a bad feeling this may be a bit stronger than they are, but that's just inclination for everyone to slowly improve. I don't like the idea of making my friends super strong, powerful decks, because that makes things lopsided, and I like things to be equal. So I'm going to, well, this is more of an experiment, really. We're going to see how this pans out. But yeah, if you have any interest in budget EDH decks, I like budget designs. There's a few channels on YouTube I could suggest if you enjoy looking at budget designs to see how you can play things with a dollar value limit. Then go ahead and share those ideas. Things like this are just fun. It's not just proving that you have a giant stack of expensive cards. You can have all the cards and all the money in the world. That doesn't make you a good Magic player, but being able to adapt to a restriction, that makes for fun times. Again, it doesn't make you a good Magic player, but it really does test your abilities. And something like this, $30 budget, I think this is fairly strong. Again, I'm going to have to see how this plays out against the group that this will be played with. But any ideas or feedback, always open here.